Right now, it's time to start putting that garden to bed, especially if you want your life a whole lot easier come spring. And Mark Konlock from the Green Bay Botanical Gardens shows us some things that we need to do right now as far as our garden goes.
It's that time of the year to put your garden to bed. And out here at Green Bay Botanical Garden, there's a whole bunch of things we do as we put our gardens to bed for the fall. The first thing we do is go through and take out the annuals that won't overwinter. So here we have a sweet potato vine that we can just pull out of the ground, kind of shake the soil into the bed. This Talinum won't make it through the winter, so we'll pull that out. You can either just pull them out by hand, or some of the things that root in more, a spade or shovel is required, or something like a garden soil knife comes in real handy to go down and cut the roots out so that you can get through there. This one's nice because it has a little serrated edge where you can cut through the soil. The other thing you want to do while you're pulling your annuals and clearing the space is go through seed. That way they won't seed and you'll have less weeds in the springtime and the summertime. And some weeds also overwinter as plants and then set seed early in the spring before you're even out there getting ready. So it's a good idea to weed out and clean up that as you go along. The other thing that you can do after you have everything cleared out is take a look of what worked well, what didn't work well. Maybe take a digital picture of the area so that you can plan in the winter time. Take some shots to get the whole bed so that you can see the different holes that you have, and it'll help you plan for the next season, especially when you're cold and anxious for some color when you get all those catalogs in February and January. Some plants that are tubers or bulbs, like a dahlia and cannas and elephant ears, it's best to let a cold, hard frost come and knock down the top foliage. Then what you can do is cut off all the dead foliage above ground and dig up the tuber or bulb. What we like to do here is let them cure for a couple days, usually in the shop or outside if it gets a little bit warmer, and then knock off the soil. And you can store them in your garage if it's slightly heated, or the best place is usually a basement. Either put it in peat moss, or what we do is wrap them up in newspapers and then we overwinter them that way. When you have a bunch of things, it's a good idea to label them. So usually we use a piece of tape that we put around the base when they're still above and alive, and we can tell what they all are. If you don't have that many, you can label the box or something like that, but just think of a labeling system so that you know what you have for when you plant it the next spring and summer. A little later in the fall, once the ground freezes and the tops of plants die back, usually it's around Thanksgiving time, we like to get our roses ready to make it through the winter. So hybrid teas, grandifloras, floribundas, and English roses in our climate here won't overwinter without some protection. So what we like to do here at the Botanical Garden is once everything dies back and the ground is frozen, we actually put wood chip mulch amongst the canes and the plant to overwinter it. And the thing that's sometimes not realized is how much it goes up. We'll put about 2 feet of mulch over this plant, all amongst the canes, using a pitchfork or a trowel or something like that to get it tightly packed, and then way out into here so that it's protecting the outsides of the cane and acts as insulation. The thing is, you want to make sure the ground is frozen before you do that. Otherwise, you can get animals that like to go into the mulch, and also it'll stay warmer longer and you'll have a harder time kind of making it through the winter. So wait till it freezes, then put down the mulch, and if you have these kinds of roses, the hybrid teas, grandiflora, floribundas, David Austins, put a good amount of mulch on them. If you have shrub roses, you don't have to go through all that work. That's the beauty of them. They'll overwinter better if they're on their own rootstock. If they die back, it doesn't matter because they're coming back true to type. So shrub roses are really lower maintenance and you don't have to do all that work. But if you want the flower of the hybrid tea, you have to do all that stuff to make them through the winter in our climate. Fall is actually the time to think about and to plant your spring flowering bulbs. So there's a lot of great companies out there. The couple that I recommend are Brent and Becky's bulbs, and the Botanical Garden has something set up where if you go to bloominbucks.com and click on Green Bay Botanical Garden, we get some of the funds from that purchase. And the other place we like a lot is Color Blends. They have really great big bulbs, and the bigger the bulb, the bigger the flower. They have a lot of good information in their catalog as well. So when you get a bulb, what you want to do is almost every bulb is planted about 2 to 3 times its diameter. So this soil knife is really handy because it has measurements on it. So it goes up to 6 inches. This thing's about 2 inches, so 6 inches would be a good depth for it. Take a trowel, take your soil knife or an auger on a drill, dig down in to the right depth, place the bulb with its roots against the ground, and then cover it up. The thing we like to do here to keep animals away is after we are done planting, we'll top dress with Milorganite, not necessarily as a fertilizer, but as an animal deterrent. And then the other thing you want to do is actually water your bulbs in because they need to imbibe moisture to start growing. They're putting down roots in the fall, and then the cold forces them to flower in the springtime. The other thing we do here to keep animals away, especially with tulip bulbs, is we'll spray the ground with liquid fence after we're done planting until it freezes. And then in the springtime, we'll spray with liquid fence on the new foliage and the flowers even, all the way through till they're done flowering. Otherwise, we have problems with rabbits, and if you have a lot of deer in your yard, you could have deer and rabbit issues. Once you have all these holes in your garden, you might be anxious to get a little color back in there. So it's important to know that after we have a first hard freeze, usually it seems like it warms up and then it's nice for a long time. So some plants that you might want to think about purchasing at a local garden center and just plucking in the ground for a little color or making a container by your front door are mums, kale, asters, purple fountain grass, things like that that take a little bit of a frost and then still come back and look really nice are a nice thing to put in for the fall season, especially after you have your bed decommissioned and it's so barren and drab. Those are some of the things you need to do to get your bed ready for the winter. Now that you have all this debris, it's really important to remember one thing. If you have diseased foliage, don't put that into your compost pile because most people's compost pile doesn't get warm enough to kill off those pathogens and you'd be spreading them around the next year. So either put it in a brush pile, take it to the yard waste center, or burn it to destroy those disease organisms. Now that the bed is ready, I think I'll try to find mine and get my pillow and blanket and snuggle up for the winter.